Hello and welcome. I'm Anand Naidu, sitting in for Riz Khan. It's a country that has suffered 3 decades of armed conflict with no end in sight. Today, Afghanistan is poor, corrupt, starved for modern infrastructure. And in the meantime, the Taliban are making a comeback and slowing down the already slow reconstruction efforts. The American press reported this week that senior officials in the Bush administration now believe that Afghanistan may pose a greater long-term challenge than Iraq. But it has not received the same attention as Iraq, and the financial aid it has received has not been enough to transform this war-torn country. Today's guests are working hard to see this situation change. Sonia Nassery Cole has been active in Afghan politics since she fled Kabul after the Soviet invasion in 1979. She was involved in relief efforts that culminated in the founding of the Afghanistan World Foundation in 2002. The foundation supports the reconstruction of Afghanistan with education, health and advocacy projects. One of the most active recruits to the cause is renowned American singer and songwriter Natalie Cole, who's won 8 Grammy Awards over the years for her soulful music. Natalie also serves on the board of directors of the Afghanistan World Foundation. Sonia and Natalie join us now from New York. Welcome to the show, lady.
Thank you.
Sonia, let me ask you this. Your foundation, the World Foundation, what exactly does it do?
Afghanistan World Foundation is a non-profit 501c organization that is based in Los Angeles, California, and we only do humanitarian help, education, health for Afghanistan, for the Afghan people, mainly focused on children.
And tell us about your own story, how you got to this point.
I escaped Afghanistan in 1979 after the Soviet invasion, came to America, saw destruction, what it's like your country to be taken over. While I was in Afghanistan, I came back to America and I decided to do something about my homeland. So I wrote a letter to President Reagan, and it was a very compassionate 9-page letter saying that what's happening in my country is genocide, and basically we can't sit in the West and pretend it's not happening, because when human rights are violated anywhere, is violated everywhere. And I was a teenager and very passionate, and as you know, as a teenager you believe that anything is possible and you can change the world. And so I wrote my phone numbers to the president. This is my office number and this is my home number. Please call me immediately as you receive this letter. And people laughed at me, saying, "You're crazy, that's the President of the United States, he will not call you back." I believed that he would, and he did. He met with me, and in that meeting, he basically told me that one person can change the world, and he said, "You can do that." And he asked me to testify in front of the Senate regarding these mines that were in the shape of a Coca-Cola bottle or a doll that had enough exposure that a child would lose an arm and a leg, but they won't die. The strategy behind it was for the Russians to get the Mujahideen, the freedom fighters, out of the country because their children are injured. And Afghanistan was very successful during the Soviet invasion on the ground. 10 years of war, they did not get conquered, but when it came to the air, they were failing big time. So the president knew that we needed Stinger missile for Afghanistan, and he wanted me to help with the testifying about that. And that's where my journey for Afghanistan started, and for the last 20 years, that's what I've been doing, and I will do it until the last day I live. It's my passion, it's my love.
Well, let me go to Natalie Cole. Natalie, how did you get involved with the foundation?
Well, I met Sonia probably, is it 7, 8 years?
8 years.
7, 8 years ago, and we became fast friends. She thinking that our last name was coincidental, and her last name is Cole too, so I thought that was very extraordinary. And I think it was in the first couple of weeks that we knew each other that Sonia started to tell me her story of her escape from Afghanistan and the things that she went through just in that as a 12-year-old girl. And I was just so moved by her by her story, by her passion. We cried right then. We were really hardly knowing each other. And I knew that this was an extraordinary woman who, if she believed something, you better believe that it was going to happen. And I got on board with her because of this. And I have seen some really wonderful things happen already, from a very small computer and a desk at her home, starting this, this idea for really to make this a little more visible, the Afghanistan World Foundation. As you know, celebrities do exactly that, and I was happy to let her exploit me to bring some kind of visibility and attention to this problem. I've never been to Afghanistan. I plan to go next year, and I just believe that this is something that is very close to her heart, and therefore it's very close to mine.
Sonia, let me ask you this. You know, as we mentioned just before we started the interview in the introduction, that the U.S. administration is under pressure now to increase troop levels in Afghanistan because of a very resurgent Taliban. We're hearing that there's more grinding poverty, corruption is rampant, and that there's very poor infrastructure. All that must combine to affect the kind of work that you're doing in Afghanistan, isn't it?
Absolutely. You're so right. The situation in Afghanistan is probably more important today than any time for us to have presence there, not only United States but worldwide, because, you know, 2002 we were much better off than we are today, because Taliban are gaining grounds. They are in the south, as you know, more and more visible, and suicide bombing never existed in Afghanistan until last year. We had massive suicide bombing, which is something that is completely unacceptable for Muslims that live in Afghanistan. Suicide is completely against everything we believe in, and a lot of innocent children die in this process. And we must support Afghanistan today and in the future, so we can have some kind of stability in that part of the world, because of the geographic location, the strategic geographic location to the Persian Gulf, Indian Ocean. We cannot lose this war. It's very important that we stay.
What are some of the current projects that your foundation is involved with at the moment?
The main thing right now that we're working on is health. Health situation in Afghanistan is absolutely the worst health system anywhere in the world today. As you know, or maybe you don't know, there's 2 mines for every Afghan in my country. And these mines are all over the country, and mostly children pick up these mines, and they blow up and they lose an arm, a leg, but there is no emergency system in Afghanistan. So they can go and at least amputate the leg and save their lives. They die from bleeding. If it's not bleeding, there is no tetanus shot. They die from infections. So for me, health is the most important thing in Afghanistan, and that's the focus of the Afghanistan World Foundation. I want the world to help us in this cause, because it breaks my heart when I go to my country and I see these innocent, beautiful children dying for simple things that we can do here in the West. And